My name is Daniel Collins. I'm 32 years old and live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a traveling salesman, and my job requires me to spend more nights in cheap motels than I'd like to admit. I never thought one of those days would change my life forever. It was late October, and the chilly air made my long drives even more exhausting. I was on my way to Flagstaff for a conference when I decided to stop for the night. The motel was one of those off-the-highway places, nothing fancy, but it had a flickering neon sign that promised clean rooms and free Wi-Fi. The clerk, a middle-aged man with dark circles under his eyes, handed me the key to room 27 without much conversation. I parked my car right outside the room, grabbed my duffel bag, and headed in. The room smelled faintly of mildew, and the carpet had a strange sticky texture. I'd stayed in worse places though, so I didn't think much of it. The room had the usual setup: a bed with a worn-out comforter, a small TV bolted to the wall, and a single window with heavy, faded curtains. As I unpacked, I noticed something odd. The room felt colder than it should have been. Even with the heater on, there was a strange chill in the air. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just the draft coming from the poorly sealed window. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I sat on the bed and flipped through the TV channels, hoping for some noise to distract me. The signal was weak, and static interrupted most channels. I settled on an old sitcom and tried to relax. That's when I heard it, the sound of footsteps. At first, I thought it was coming from the hallway outside. But the more I listened, the more I realized the sound wasn't coming from outside the door. It was inside the room. Slow, deliberate steps, as if someone was walking barefoot on the carpet. My heart started to race. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. I stood up and checked the bathroom, half expecting to find someone hiding in there. Nothing. The closet was empty too. I even peeked under the bed, but it was just dusty. I told myself I was imagining things. Long drives and little sleep could mess with your head. I sat back down, but the unease didn't go away. The footsteps didn't start again, but the silence felt oppressive. I tried calling my girlfriend, Lily, to calm my nerves, but the call wouldn't connect. The weak signal made it impossible. At around midnight, I decided to go to bed. I turned off the TV and slid under the thin blanket, trying to block out the nagging sense of dread. The heater hummed faintly in the background, a comforting white noise. I must have dozed off for about an hour when I woke up suddenly. My body was stiff and my ears were ringing. I felt disoriented, like I wasn't alone in the room. My eyes darted around, adjusting to the darkness. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, but as my eyes focused, I realized there was a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was tall, unnaturally so, and its outline seemed to flicker like a bad TV signal. I froze, unable to move or even scream. The figure didn't move at first. It just stood there, watching me. I could feel its gaze even though I couldn't see its eyes. Then, slowly, it began to step closer. The way it moved wasn't normal. It was jerky, almost like it was glitching. I scrambled out of bed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice cracking. The figure stopped. For a moment, I thought it might disappear, but then it tilted its head, as if curious. That's when I heard the whisper. It wasn't a voice in the room. It was inside my head. "Get out." I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my car keys and bolted out of the room, leaving my bag and everything else behind. As I ran down the hallway, I glanced back. The figure was standing in the doorway, watching me. I jumped into my car and sped off, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I drove for miles before finally pulling over at a gas station to catch my breath. I told myself I must have been dreaming or hallucinating. Maybe the stress of my job was catching up with me. But as I sat there, trying to calm down, I noticed something chilling. My arm was scratched, 3 long, deep marks that hadn't been there before. I didn't go back to the motel that night. I drove straight through until the sun came up, hoping the daylight would make everything feel less unreal. I kept telling myself that what happened was just a figment of my imagination. Stress, exhaustion, maybe even a mild hallucination. But as the miles stretched on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I spent the next couple of days in Flagstaff for the conference, but I couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure. Every time I heard a noise, my heart would race, thinking it was the whispering voice telling me to leave. I couldn't get rid of the image of it standing there in the dark, its tall, glitchy figure flickering as it moved closer. When the conference was over, I was eager to head home. I just wanted to put everything behind me, pretend it never happened. But as I drove back, something strange happened. I found myself pulling off the highway and heading back toward that same motel. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I thought I could face whatever I'd experienced. Maybe I needed answers. I arrived in the late afternoon. The sky was clouded with dark, heavy clouds. The same neon sign flickered above the entrance. Clean rooms. I parked outside room 27, the same room I'd stayed in before. My hands were sweaty, my breath shallow. But I didn't turn back this time. The clerk from before wasn't there, but I noticed a different man behind the counter. He looked young, probably in his early 20s. He handed me the key to room 27 without a word. I asked him if there had been any complaints about the room, anything unusual. He gave me a confused look and said, "No, sir. It's just a room like the rest." I took the key and walked down the hallway to room 27, every step feeling like it was leading me into something I couldn't control. As soon as I opened the door, I was hit by the same cold, musty air. The room looked exactly as it had before. The same old bed, the same stained carpet, and the same heavy curtains that barely let any light in. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. I didn't want to stay, but I didn't want to leave either. My mind was racing. Was I being paranoid? Was I going crazy? But then I heard something. It was faint but unmistakable. Footsteps. I froze, heart pounding. The same slow, deliberate steps I'd heard before. They were coming from inside the room. I turned to look, expecting to see someone, but there was no one there. I stepped further inside, my eyes scanning every corner, trying to make sense of what was happening. The footsteps continued, but this time, I could feel them in my chest. It wasn't just sound. It felt like something was walking right next to me. I turned around quickly, my breath coming out in short bursts. "Hello," I shouted, my voice trembling. Silence. But as I exhaled, the air grew colder. I could see my breath. I looked around again, and that's when I saw it. In the corner, just like before, a shadow, a figure. It was flickering, moving slowly, its outline shifting in and out of focus like a bad TV signal. I stepped back, my mind screaming at me to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. The figure started to move closer, and this time, I could hear it more clearly. The whisper, "Leave." I turned to run, but the door slammed shut before I could reach it. I banged on the door, yelling, but no one came. My heart was racing, my whole body shaking. The figure was getting closer, and I couldn't see its face. It was just a dark silhouette, its shape warped and unnatural. I could feel its presence. It was as if it was feeding off my fear, growing stronger with every passing second. I backed away from it, my back hitting the wall. I had nowhere to go. And then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the wall opposite me, something was written. It wasn't in a language I could understand, but the letters seemed to crawl, twisting and turning like they were alive. The same whisper from before filled my ears again. "Get out." I didn't need any more warnings. I turned and threw myself at the window, desperate to escape. The glass shattered, and I climbed through, cutting my arms on the broken shards. I didn't care. I just needed to get out of that room, out of that motel. I stumbled into the parking lot, bleeding and panting, my body drenched in sweat. I didn't even stop to grab my car keys. I just ran across the lot, not stopping until I was safely in my car, doors locked and engine running. I glanced at the motel one last time before speeding away. But as I looked at the second floor window, where room 27 was, I saw it. The figure was standing there, watching me from the window. Its outline flickered in the dim light, but this time, it wasn't just the figure that terrified me. It was the fact that it was smiling. A wide, twisted smile that stretched impossibly far across its face. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away. I'm not sure what I saw, or if I was just losing my mind, but I knew one thing for sure. I will never go back to that motel. I don't know what I was expecting when I left that night, but it wasn't peace. The drive home was a blur. My mind kept going back to that smile, the figure standing in the window, its twisted face grinning at me as I drove away. I tried to convince myself it wasn't real, that it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew something had happened, something that couldn't be explained. When I finally arrived home in Phoenix, I tried to go back to my normal routine. I told myself I was safe now, that the motel was miles away, and whatever I experienced there stayed behind. But the unease never left me. At night, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in my mind over and over. The sound of the footsteps, the whispering voice, and that figure, its eyes, its smile, haunted me. A few weeks later, I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to know if someone else had experienced the same thing at that motel. I knew I couldn't be the only one. I started searching online, looking for any mention of strange occurrences at the motel, but I found nothing. The place was just another roadside motel, its reputation nothing more than a few cheap reviews from travelers. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I called the motel, wanting to speak to someone who had been there longer, someone who might know if the room had a history. The clerk who answered seemed unfamiliar with me, so I asked if there had been any incidents or complaints about room 27. His response was unsettling. Room 27. He said, almost hesitating. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. That room has been closed for years. We haven't rented it out in a long time. I was confused. But I stayed there, just a few weeks ago. The same room. Are you sure it's closed? There was a long pause before he answered. No, sir. That room is closed. It's been locked up for a while now. We don't rent it out anymore. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to press further, asking why it was closed, but the clerk grew more distant and told me I should stop asking questions about that room. Something about his tone unsettled me even more. It was as if he knew something, but didn't want to tell me. I hung up the phone, feeling even more lost than before. What was going on? If that room had been closed for years, how had I stayed there? And if it had been locked up, why did it seem so real? The footsteps, the figure, the whisper, none of it made sense. It felt like I was being pushed into something I couldn't control. Days passed, and I tried to move on with my life. But then, one morning, something happened that made me realize the truth. I woke up to find scratches on my arms. Deep, raw marks that weren't there the night before. I looked at them, confused and terrified. They were identical to the ones I had gotten the night I left the motel. I stared at the marks for a long time, my mind racing. I had never had anything like this happen before. The same scratches in the same pattern, as if whatever had happened in that room hadn't stayed there at all. It had followed me home. That night, I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. The fear was too strong. The whispering voice returned in my dreams, telling me to leave, to get out. But no matter where I went, it seemed to follow. I could hear the footsteps outside my door. The figure lurking in the shadows of my room, its eyes gleaming in the dark. I began to realize that it wasn't just room 27 that was haunted. It was me. The figure, the cold, the whispers, they were all inside my head, driving me to the edge of insanity. I couldn't escape it. I don't know what happened in that room or why it's still haunting me, but I can't live like this anymore. I moved away from Phoenix, far away from the memories of that motel. But even now, as I write this, I feel like the figure is still out there, watching me, waiting for the next time I slip up. Maybe one day, I'll return to that motel to find the answers I need. But for now, I can only hope that whatever followed me is still far behind. If you're ever on a long drive and find yourself at a roadside motel, don't stay in room 27. Just keep going. Trust me, you don't want to know what's inside.
Are you ready to experience the most disturbing and thrilling stories? Subscribe to Dreamcatcher Nightmares for suspenseful tales that will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with every nightmare we bring to life.